The battle began at dawn over New Denver, when the Zeltharian fleet commander sent his ultimatum. Admiral Torres read the message aloud in the human command center. Surrender our personnel immediately, or face the consequences of defying the Crystalline Empire. 5 minutes later, the Corvin hive mind transmitted their own demand. Return stolen bio units to proper collective or experience termination protocols. Captain Morrison smiled grimly as he positioned his small fleet directly between the two massive alien armadas. Both sides want to fight, but neither wants to be the aggressor. Perfect. Commander Stone monitored the alien formations from his tactical station. Sir, the Zeltharian ships are charging their energy weapon arrays. The Corvin biovessels are releasing attack pheromones. Both fleets are preparing for combat. Then let us give them what they want, Morrison replied. All ships execute Operation Chaos Theory. The human fleet suddenly scattered in every direction like startled birds. Instead of maintaining formation, each ship began moving in completely random patterns at maximum speed. The elegant alien battle formations designed for thousands of years of predictable warfare had no response to such chaotic movement. Chief Engineer Brooks had worked all night modifying the human weapons systems. Instead of conventional energy beams or projectiles, the human ships now fired bursts of electromagnetic static, reflective chaff clouds, and holographic decoys. None of it was designed to destroy enemy vessels, but rather to confuse their targeting systems. The Zeltharian fleet fired first. Brilliant blue energy beams lanced through space toward the erratically moving human ships. But the chaff clouds and electronic interference made targeting nearly impossible. Most shots missed entirely, while others struck holographic projections that vanished on impact. The Corvin fleet responded with swarms of organic missiles that homed in on their targets using biological sensors. The missiles were incredibly accurate against normal enemy vessels, but had never encountered anything like the human countermeasures. Some missiles became confused by overlapping electronic signatures and began circling aimlessly, while others locked onto their own fleet's biosignatures by mistake. Sir, the Corvin missiles are striking Zeltharian ships, Stone reported excitedly. The aliens are beginning to fire on each other. Morrison watched the tactical display as his plan unfolded perfectly. All ships maintain evasive patterns and stay between the alien fleets. Make them choose between hitting us or hitting each other. Dr. Carter monitored the alien communications from the Endeavor. Jake, both fleets are becoming increasingly frustrated. Their commanders are demanding explanations from each other about the friendly fire incidents. Good. Confusion is our greatest weapon against species that depend on logical predictability. On New Denver, the ground battle was developing differently than anyone expected. Lieutenant Rogers had positioned her colonial defense volunteers around the refugee camps when Corvin drop pods began landing near the settlement. But instead of attacking, the Corvin soldiers seemed uncertain about their mission. The lead Corvin warrior approached Rogers under a white flag. Query: location of stolen bio units for retrieval operations. Rogers gestured toward the medical shelters where recovered aliens from both species were watching the space battle overhead. Your people are right there. They are free to leave whenever they choose. Negative. Bio units do not possess individual choice parameters. They return to collective immediately. Why don't you ask them what they want? Rogers suggested. The concept seemed to confuse the Corvin warrior. He had never considered that individual beings might have preferences separate from collective directives. When Subcommander Hex 9 approached from the refugee camp, the warrior's confusion deepened. Unit designation Hex 9. Report for immediate hive mind reconnection. The warrior commanded. Hex 9 looked at the human defenders, then at his fellow Corvins, then back at Rogers. For the first time in his life, he was making a decision based on personal experience rather than collective programming. Negative, he said quietly. This unit requests extended assignment to human liaison duties. The warrior's antennae twitched in shock. Individual Corvins did not refuse direct orders from the collective. Such behavior was literally unthinkable within their social structure. Meanwhile, Zeltharian shuttles had landed on the opposite side of New Denver. Zeth Prime Valdris met the rescue team personally, still wearing human medical bandages over his healing crystal wounds. Zeth Prime Valdris, you will return to the fleet immediately, the Zeltharian commander ordered. Your extended contact with primitive aliens requires psychological cleansing. Valdris looked back at the human settlement where he had experienced concepts unknown to his people. Commander, I request permission to study human tactical capabilities further. They have demonstrated military innovations that could benefit the Empire. Impossible. Contact with chaos minds contaminates logical thought processes. Then perhaps logical thought processes require contamination, Valdris replied calmly. The space battle was reaching its climax as both alien fleets became increasingly entangled in accidental combat with each other. Morrison's human ships continued their unpredictable dance between the two forces. Using every trick Chief Engineer Brooks had devised, Admiral Torres coordinated the overall strategy from his flagship, while individual human captains improvised moment by moment. Colonel Ray Hunter led a group of modified freighters that deployed clouds of reflective particles, creating false sensor readings throughout both alien fleets. Sir, the Zeltharian flagship is demanding immediate communication, the communications officer reported. Morrison accepted the transmission and found himself face to face with a towering, crystalline being whose entire body glowed with barely contained energy. Human Commander, your chaotic tactics violate all accepted rules of civilized warfare, the Zeltharian Admiral declared. We demand immediate cessation of these dishonorable maneuvers. There are no rules in warfare except survival, Morrison replied calmly. If you want to fight by your ancient codes, fight each other. Leave humanity out of your 1,000-year grudge match. Before the alien could respond, a Corvin biomissile struck the Zeltharian flagship's flank, causing massive structural damage. The crystal ship began spinning out of control as its energy systems fluctuated wildly. The Corvin hive mind immediately transmitted to all human vessels. Accidental weapons discharge regretted. Human vessels maintaining unpredictable movement patterns causing targeting errors. Morrison seized the moment. Both fleets, this is Captain Morrison of Earth Fleet Command. Your war ends here and now. New Denver is neutral territory under human protection. Any further aggressive actions will be met with immediate response. Your threats are meaningless, the Zeltharian commander replied. Soft flesh primitives cannot challenge galactic powers. Morrison nodded to Commander Stone, who activated a previously hidden weapon system. The Endeavor suddenly fired a massive electromagnetic pulse that temporarily disabled both alien flagships. The aliens watched in shock as their advanced technology was neutralized by a simple human modification. Your 1,000-year war has made you predictable, Morrison explained to both alien commanders. You fight the same battles with the same tactics against the same enemies. Humans fight differently because we think differently. On the planet below, something remarkable was happening. Corvin and Zeltharian survivors were choosing to remain with their human rescuers rather than return to their fleets. For the first time in galactic history, members of both species were defecting to a third party. Subcommander Hex 9 addressed his fellow Corvins directly. Individual consciousness permits analysis of alternatives previously invisible to collective awareness. Human cooperation models demonstrate superior survival strategies. Zeth Prime Valdris spoke to his rescue team with similar conviction. These chaos minds possess strategic capabilities that transcend traditional military doctrine. They have ended our conflict through methods neither Empire nor Syndicate could predict or counter. Dr. Carter monitored the growing number of defections with amazement. Jake, we are seeing something unprecedented. Individual aliens are choosing human alliance over their own species' loyalty. Morrison smiled as he watched both alien fleets beginning to withdraw from New Denver. Doctor, I think we just discovered something more powerful than any weapon. We gave them a choice. The Battle of New Denver ended not with destruction but with transformation. Humanity had not conquered two galactic powers through superior firepower. They had shown them a different way of thinking about conflict, cooperation, and individual choice. As the alien fleets retreated to regroup and consider this new development, the survivors on New Denver began planning something that had never existed before. A truly integrated society where different species could work together as equals rather than conquerors and conquered. The ancient war was not over, but it would never be the same again. Humans had introduced chaos theory to galactic politics, and the reverberations would spread far beyond one small farming colony. The first crash shook the ground for miles around New Denver. Lieutenant Kate Rogers felt the vibration through her boots as she stood in the colony's emergency command center. 3 more impacts followed in quick succession. each one sending tremors through the peaceful farming community. Governor Sam Phillips stared at the tactical display showing 6 crash sites scattered across the northern agricultural zone. Red dots marked where Zeltharian crystal pods had come down, while green dots showed the Corvan biopods. The alien survivors were less than 20 miles from the main settlement. Medical teams are standing by, Dr. Pete Walsh reported from the colony hospital. But I have no idea how to treat alien physiology. Kate Rogers was already suiting up in environmental gear. I am taking a rescue team to the nearest crash site. We need to secure the area before the survivors start fighting each other. Dr. Carter's voice came through the communication system from the orbiting Endeavour. Lieutenant Rogers approached with extreme caution. Both species will be disoriented and potentially hostile. The Zeltharians may discharge energy burst when stressed, while Corvans might release defensive pheromones. Rogers nodded and turned to her small team of colonial defense volunteers. They were farmers and miners, not soldiers, but they were all New Denver had. Remember, we are here to help anyone who needs it. Alien or not, wounded beings deserve medical attention. The first crash site was a smoking crater where a Zeltharian escape pod had plowed through a wheat field. The crystalline vessel had cracked open like an egg, revealing 2 injured occupants. One was clearly dead, but the other was moving weakly. Rogers approached carefully and activated her universal translator. We are here to help. Do not be afraid. The surviving Zeltharian was tall and graceful even while lying broken in the wreckage. His crystal-like skin had several deep cracks that leaked a blue substance that might have been blood. When he saw the humans approaching, his eyes widened in surprise. Soft flesh, he whispered in the musical Zeltharian language. Why do you come near? This zone is combat area. This is New Denver, Rogers replied calmly. You crashed on our world. We are going to get you medical help. The alien tried to sit up and winced in pain. I am Zeth Prime Valdris of the Crystalline Fleet. You must contact my ships immediately. Your ships left the system, Rogers told him. Right now you need a doctor, not a fleet. She signaled for her medical technician to begin treating the alien's wounds. The human carefully cleaned the crystal cuts and applied emergency bandages designed for human physiology. To everyone's surprise, the treatment seemed to help stabilize the Zeltharian's condition. Valdris stared at the humans working to save his life. In 1,000 years of war, no enemy had ever provided medical aid to wounded Zeltharians. Even his own people sometimes left the severely injured behind if rescue would be tactically difficult. Why do you help me? He asked. Your species gains nothing from this action. Rogers paused in her work and looked directly at the alien. Because it is the right thing to do. The second crash site was different. The Corvan biopod had buried itself deep in the soft earth near an irrigation canal. When Rogers and her team arrived, they found 3 injured insectoid beings trapped in the organic wreckage. The biopod was still alive and pulsing weakly around its passengers. The largest Corvan had a broken carapace that exposed internal organs. The other 2 were smaller drones with damaged limbs. All 3 were connected to the ship through biological cables that fed them nutrients and oxygen. The ship is dying, Dr. Walsh observed through his scanner. If we do not get them out soon, they will die with it. Rogers made a quick decision. Cut the biocables. We will have to risk disconnecting them. Her team worked carefully to extract the 3 Corvans from their dying ship. The aliens were heavier than they looked, and their insect-like limbs made transport difficult. When they were finally free, the largest Corvan opened his compound eyes and stared at the humans. Query. Identity of rescue units unknown, he said in the clicking Corvan language. This unit requires immediate reconnection to HiveMind network. The HiveMind is not here, Rogers explained. We are humans from New Denver Colony. We are providing emergency medical assistance. The Corvan's antennae twitched in confusion. Negative. Humans do not engage in rescue operations during active combat zones. This unit's behavioral models do not account for such actions. Dr. Walsh began treating the Corvan's injuries with the same care he had given the Zeltharian. The alien's biology was completely different, but the principles of emergency medicine still applied. Stop the bleeding, stabilize vital signs, prevent shock. By the time they reached the 3rd crash site, word had spread through the colony. Volunteers were arriving with medical supplies, food, and temporary shelters. The crash had destroyed a storage barn, but underneath the wreckage they found 2 more Zeltharians and 1 Corvan who had somehow ended up in the same escape pod. The mixed group of survivors was the most surprising discovery yet. Apparently, their respective ships had been so close when they exploded that escape pods from both sides had been caught in the same debris field. The aliens had been forced to share an emergency shelter while their pod systems failed. They were helping each other, one of the human volunteers reported in amazement. The Zeltharian was using his energy abilities to keep the Corvin warm, while the Corvin was sharing his emergency rations. Governor Phillips arrived at the crash sites as the sun was setting over New Denver. He found aliens from two warring species being treated side by side in temporary medical stations staffed by human volunteers. Colonial children were bringing water and food to beings they had only heard about in history lessons. Zeth Prime. Valdris had been moved to a more comfortable shelter where he could rest while his crystal body slowly healed itself. When Phillips approached, the alien struggled to sit up respectfully. "Governor Phillips," Valdris said carefully, "I must express gratitude for your people's actions. This level of aid to enemy survivors is unknown in galactic warfare." Phillips sat down beside the alien's medical bed. "We do not consider you enemies. You are injured beings who need help. That is all." "But my people and the Corvins have been at war for over 1,000 years," Valdris protested. "We have destroyed countless worlds in our conflict." "Your war is not our war," Phillips replied simply. "New Denver is neutral ground. Anyone who comes here in peace will be treated with respect regardless of their species." In the Corvin medical area, the three rescued insects were having similar conversations with Dr. Walsh and other colony personnel. The hive mind connection they depended on was gone, forcing them to think as individuals for the first time in their lives. The largest Corvin, who identified himself as Subcommander Hex 9, found the experience both terrifying and fascinating. Without the constant mental link to his species, he could observe human behavior without the filter of collective analysis, query, human motivations. For aid provision, he asked Dr. Walsh. "Corvin, tactical models suggest deception or hidden agenda." Dr. Walsh smiled and continued checking the alien's healing progress. "No hidden agenda. We help because we can and because it is right. Sometimes the simplest answer is the correct one." As night fell over New Denver, something unprecedented was happening. Zeltharian and Corvin survivors were living peacefully in the same human settlement. They were eating human food, receiving human medical care, and slowly beginning to understand that the galaxy contained perspectives they had never considered. Captain Morrison orbited overhead in the Endeavor, monitoring communications and preparing for what would surely come next. Both alien fleets would eventually notice their missing personnel and come looking for answers. When they arrived, they would find something that violated every assumption they had about warfare, politics, and the nature of galactic civilization. The survivors on New Denver were no longer just Zeltharians and Corvins. They were beings who had experienced human compassion and discovered that ancient enemies could coexist when someone else set the rules. This revelation would soon spread beyond the small farming colony and challenge everything the galaxy thought it knew about conflict and cooperation. Lieutenant Rogers filed her final report of the day and looked out at the temporary shelters housing survivors from both alien species. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as the news of New Denver's actions spread across the galaxy. But tonight, for the first time in 1,000 years, Zeltharians and Corvins were sleeping peacefully under the same sky. The first sign of trouble came 3 days after the rescue operations. Captain Morrison was reviewing supply reports when Commander Stone called out from the sensor station aboard the Endeavor. "Captain, we have multiple hyperspace signatures incoming. 2 separate fleets approaching from different vectors." Morrison moved to the tactical display and studied the readings. 47 Zeltharian ships were dropping out of hyperspace on the port side, while 36 Corvin biovessels emerged to starboard. Both fleets were moving directly toward New Denver. "They want their people back," Dr. Carter observed grimly, "and they probably want to punish us for interfering." Morrison opened a priority channel to Earth. "Admiral Torres, we have a situation developing at New Denver. Both alien fleets have arrived and they do not look friendly." Admiral Ben Torres appeared on the screen within minutes. Behind him, Morrison could see the controlled chaos of Luna Station's command center. Earth's military leaders were clearly scrambling to respond to the crisis. "Jake, what is the tactical situation?" Torres asked. 2 full battle fleets, sir. They have us outnumbered about 40 to 1. Our orders are to maintain neutrality, but they are demanding we surrender the survivors." Torres was quiet for a long moment. "The Galactic Council is in emergency session. Both the Zeltharian Empire and Corvin Syndicate are demanding explanations for human interference in their war. Sir, we provided medical aid to wounded beings, Morrison replied. That should not be controversial. Unfortunately, both sides consider it an act of war, Torres said. I am bringing every available human ship to New Denver. We may be outnumbered, but we will not abandon our colony. The transmission ended and Morrison turned to his crew. They all knew what was coming. Earth's entire space fleet consisted of fewer than 200 ships, most of them explorers and cargo vessels hastily converted for combat. Against two ancient galactic powers, humanity stood no chance in a traditional battle. Commander Stone, begin tactical analysis of both fleets, Morrison ordered. Find me something we can use. Stone worked furiously at his station while the alien fleets took positions around New Denver. The Zeltharian ships formed elegant geometric patterns that maximized their energy weapon coverage, while the Corvin biovessels moved in organic swarms that could adapt instantly to changing conditions. Sir, I have the analysis, Stone reported. The Zeltharian fleet relies heavily on coordinated energy shield networks. If one ship fails, it creates a cascade vulnerability. The Corvin fleet uses biological communication links that can be disrupted by certain electromagnetic frequencies. Interesting, Morrison mused. What about their tactics? That is the strange part, sir. Both fleets are positioning for traditional battle formations from their ancient war. They are not adapting their strategies for fighting humans at all. Dr. Carter looked up from her alien psychology texts. That makes sense. They have been fighting each other for so long that they cannot conceive of any other type of warfare. To them, all combat follows the same patterns. Morrison began to form a plan. Commander Stone, prepare to send detailed tactical data to the incoming human fleet. Chief Engineer Brooks, I need you to modify our weapon systems for maximum unpredictability. Chief Engineer Nina Brooks grinned as she headed for the engine room. She had been waiting for a chance to test some of her more creative modifications. Aye, sir, I will give you weapons that will confuse the hell out of those aliens. On New Denver, the situation was growing tense. Governor Phillips had declared the planet neutral territory, but both alien fleets were demanding immediate surrender of their personnel. Lieutenant Rogers had positioned her small defense force around the temporary refugee camps, where Zeltharian and Corvin survivors were still recovering. Zeth Prime. Valdris approached Rogers as she checked the defensive perimeter. The Zeltharian's crystal wounds had healed remarkably well under human medical care, and he was now mobile again. Lieutenant Rogers, I must speak with you about the approaching fleets, he said formally. My people will demand that I return immediately. They will not accept any delay. Rogers looked up at the alien who had become something like a friend over the past few days. And what do you want to do, Valdris? The question seemed to surprise him. Want I do not understand. I am a military officer. I follow orders. But if you could choose, Rogers pressed, what would you choose? Valdris was quiet for a long time. I have seen something here that should not exist. Natural enemies working together. Compassion extended to strangers. Medical care provided without expectation of reward. These concepts do not fit into any Zeltharian philosophical framework. Maybe your framework needs updating, Rogers suggested. In the Corvin section of the refugee camp, Subcommander Hex 9 was having similar thoughts. Disconnected from the hive mind for 3 days, he had begun to develop individual opinions and preferences. The experience was both frightening and exhilarating. Dr. Walsh found him sitting alone outside his shelter, staring up at the stars where his people's fleet waited in orbit. You look troubled, Hex 9. Troubled is accurate, the Corvin replied. Individual consciousness is disturbing to hive mind psychology, but also enlightening. I begin to understand why humans act so unpredictably. How so? Walsh asked, sitting down beside the alien. Hive mind makes all decisions through collective analysis of available data, Hex 9 explained. Individual minds make decisions through emotional responses and personal experiences. This creates infinite possible outcomes from identical situations. Walsh nodded. We call it free will. Every person gets to choose their own path. The first communication from the alien fleets came that evening. Both sides demanded immediate conference with human leadership to discuss surrender terms for their personnel and punishment for human interference in galactic affairs. Governor Phillips, Captain Morrison, and Admiral Torres, who had arrived with the human relief fleet, met in New Denver's modest government building to plan their response. Outside, nearly 100 human ships had taken defensive positions around the planet. "Gentlemen, we are massively outgunned," Torres said bluntly. "Our only advantage is that neither alien fleet wants to fire the first shot and risk starting a larger war with the other." Morrison studied the tactical displays showing both fleets in perfect attack formations. "Sir, I have an idea that might work, but it requires us to do something completely unexpected." "What do you have in mind?" Torres asked. "We position our fleet between the alien fleets and invite both sides to attack us simultaneously," Morrison replied. "When they try to coordinate their assault, we use unpredictable movement patterns to force them into firing solutions that target each other." Torres stared at his younger officer. "Jake, that is either brilliant or suicidal." "Maybe both, sir, but it is the only way to make this work. The aliens cannot adapt to chaos because they have never encountered it. We use that against them." Phillips cleared his throat. "Gentlemen, before we start any battles, I want to make something clear. New Denver is declaring independence from the Galactic Council's jurisdiction. This planet is now sovereign human territory under Earth protection." The declaration surprised both military officers, but Torres quickly understood its implications. "That gives us legal authority to defend the colony against any aggression." "Exactly," Phillips confirmed. "Any attack on New Denver is an act of war against humanity." Morrison activated the fleet communication system. "All human vessels, this is Captain Morrison. Prepare for Operation Chaos Theory. We are going to show two ancient empires what happens when humans stop following the rules. The next few hours would determine whether humanity's first major intervention in galactic politics would end in disaster or victory. But one thing was certain: after this battle, no alien species would ever again dismiss humans as irrelevant observers." The ancient war between Zeltharians and Corvins had followed predictable patterns for 1,000 years. What they were about to discover was that humans did not believe in following patterns. They believed in breaking them. As the three fleets maneuvered for position around New Denver, the survivors on the planet watched from their shelters and wondered what their rescue would cost the brave humans who had saved them. Soon they would learn that sometimes the greatest victories come from refusing to fight the enemy's war. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Endeavor and watched two alien fleets tear each other apart. The view screen showed hundreds of ships locked in deadly combat across the void of space. Blue energy beams from the Zeltharian Empire cut through the darkness, while the Corvin Syndicate responded with swarms of biomechanical fighters that moved like angry insects. Dr. Lisa Carter stepped beside him and shook her head. She had been studying both alien species for 3 years now, and still could not understand why they kept fighting. The war had been going on for over 1,000 years with no end in sight. Entire star systems had been reduced to rubble, and still they continued. "Another battle over the Nexus Point hyperspace junction," she said quietly. "They have been fighting for control of that route for the past century alone." Morrison nodded and checked his instruments. The human ship was positioned safely outside the combat zone, but close enough to monitor everything. Earth had ordered all human vessels to stay neutral in the conflict. They were too new to galactic politics and too weak to matter anyway. The Zeltharians were tall, crystalline beings who could manipulate energy with their minds. Their ships were elegant things that looked like floating cathedrals made of living crystal. They considered themselves the rightful rulers of the galaxy because they had been spacefaring for over 10,000 years. The Corvins were different entirely. They looked like giant insects with 6 limbs and compound eyes. Their ships were grown rather than built and pulsed with organic rhythms. The Corvin hive mind connected every individual into a single shared consciousness that could coordinate massive fleets with perfect precision. Both species barely acknowledged that humans existed. When Earth had joined the Galactic Council 50 years ago, the other species had treated them like curious children. The Zeltharians called humans soft-flesh weaklings, while the Corvins referred to them as short-lived chaos minds whose thoughts were too random to understand. "Commander," Alex Stone moved to the tactical station and frowned at his readings. "The Zeltharian flagship is taking heavy damage," he reported. "Their energy shields are fluctuating." Morrison watched as the massive crystal ship began to list to one side. Dozens of Corvin biofighters swarmed around it like predators sensing weakness. The Zeltharian vessel tried to retreat, but more Corvin ships moved to block its escape route. "Sir, Admiral Torres is calling from Earth." the communications officer announced. Morrison accepted the transmission and Admiral Ben Torres appeared on the screen. The older man looked tired as he spoke from his office on Luna Station. "Jake, I know you are watching the battle at Nexus Point. Remember your orders. No interference, no matter what happens." "Understood, sir," Morrison replied. "We are maintaining position at the edge of the system." Torres nodded grimly. "Good. Both sides have made it clear that any human involvement will be considered an act of war. We cannot afford to make enemies of either faction." The transmission ended and Morrison returned his attention to the battle. He understood the Admiral's position, but it felt wrong to just watch while beings died. Dr. Carter had often said that human nature included something the aliens lacked: the ability to feel empathy for strangers. The Zeltharian flagship suddenly exploded in a brilliant flash of blue light. Debris scattered in all directions as the remaining crystal ships began a hasty retreat. The Corvins had won another victory, but at a terrible cost. Morrison counted at least 30 destroyed bioships floating dead in space. "Captain," Alex Stone called out urgently, "I am detecting escape pods from both fleets. Some are heading toward the inner system." Morrison studied the tactical display. Several small craft were indeed racing away from the battle zone. Most would be picked up by their own fleets, but a few were traveling in the wrong direction entirely. "Where are they heading?" Morrison asked. Stone checked his calculations twice before answering. "New Denver colony, sir. They will reach the planet in approximately 6 hours." Dr. Carter looked concerned. "New Denver only has basic defenses. If armed survivors from both sides land there simultaneously, it could become a disaster." Morrison made a decision that would change everything. "Set course for New Denver. Maximum speed." "Sir, our orders." Stone began. "Our orders are to stay neutral," Morrison interrupted. "I intend to do exactly that. We are not going to fight anyone. We are going to help everyone." The Endeavor turned away from the battle and accelerated toward the human colony. Behind them, the surviving alien fleets continued their eternal dance of destruction. Neither side paid any attention to the small human ship that was racing to change the course of galactic history. New Denver was a farming world with about 50,000 human colonists. They had built a peaceful life growing crops and raising livestock under an orange sun. The colony had never been involved in any conflicts and had no reason to expect trouble from the ancient alien. Our Governor Sam Phillips was reviewing crop reports when his aide burst into the office with news of incoming spacecraft. Within minutes, the colony's small defense force was on high alert under the command of Lieutenant Kate Rogers. Morrison contacted the colony as soon as the Endeavor dropped out of hyperspace. "Governor Phillips, this is Captain Morrison of the Earth vessel Endeavor. We have a situation developing." Phillips appeared on the communication screen looking worried. "Captain, we have detected multiple unknown craft approaching our planet. Are they hostile?" "They are survivors from a battle between the Zeltharian Empire and the Corvin Syndicate," Morrison explained. "Both sides have wounded personnel who will need immediate assistance." The governor's face went pale. "Captain, we are not equipped to handle alien refugees, especially hostile ones." "They may not be hostile once they land," Dr. Carter interjected. "Wounded beings tend to focus on survival rather than fighting." Lieutenant Rogers joined the conversation from the Planetary Defense Center. "Sir, we have 6 craft confirmed inbound. 3 appear to be Zeltharian design and 3 are definitely Corvin biopods. Estimated landing time is 90 minutes. Morrison made another decision that his superiors would later question. "Governor, we are going to help coordinate the rescue efforts. Dr. Carter is an expert on both species and can provide medical guidance." "And if they start fighting each other on our soil?" Phillips asked. "Then we stop them," Morrison said simply. "New Denver is human territory. Anyone who lands there follows human rules." The next few hours would prove that sometimes the smallest actions can have the biggest consequences. As the alien survivors crashed into the peaceful farmland of New Denver, nobody realized that humanity was about to step onto the galactic stage in a way that would shock 2 ancient empires. The war between the Zeltharians and Corvins had continued for 1,000 years because both sides followed predictable patterns. They fought according to ancient codes of honor and tactical doctrines that never changed. What they were about to discover was that humans did not follow any patterns at all. The escape pods began entering New Denver's atmosphere as Captain Morrison prepared to do something no human had ever done before: tell two galactic superpowers exactly how things were going to work on a human world. 6 months after the Battle of New Denver, Ambassador Ruth Davis sat across from the most powerful beings in the galaxy and smiled. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called to address what both the Zeltharian Empire and Corvin Syndicate were calling the human problem. The council chamber on Nexus Prime was a massive structure designed to accommodate hundreds of different alien species. But today only 3 groups mattered: the crystalline Zeltharians on one side, the insectoid Corvins on the other, and the small human delegation in the center. High Zeth Commander Azriel spoke first, his crystal body glowing with barely controlled anger. The humans have violated every principle of galactic order. They have stolen our personnel, disrupted military operations, and introduced chaos into a conflict that has maintained stability for over 1,000 years. Hive Queen Vex Prime responded with equal fury, her compound eyes reflecting the chamber's lights. Human chaos minds have contaminated our bio-units with individual consciousness disorders. This infection threatens the integrity of the collective itself. Ambassador Davis remained calm as she activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Honored members of the Council, let me show you what your 1,000-year war has actually accomplished. The display revealed systems reduced to debris, entire planets stripped bare, and billions of lives lost in endless cycles of revenge and retaliation. Trade routes had been militarized, scientific progress had stagnated, and younger species like humanity had been forced to develop in isolation. This is not stability, Davis continued. This is mutual destruction on a galactic scale. What humanity did at New Denver was not an act of war. It was an intervention to prevent further catastrophe. Dr. Carter stepped forward with her analysis of the alien defectors. Over 300 Zeltharians and Corvins have chosen to remain in human space rather than return to their fleets. When we asked them why, they all gave the same answer. They finally had the opportunity to choose. High Zeth Commander Azriel's crystal form pulsed with indignation. Choice is chaos. Order requires adherence to proven systems and established hierarchies. And yet your proven systems have produced nothing but endless war. Captain Morrison interjected from his position beside the ambassador. Maybe it is time to try something new. The human delegation had spent months preparing for this moment. They knew that traditional diplomacy would fail because both alien species were locked into thinking patterns that prevented real change. What they needed was a demonstration of human methods in action. General Frank Miller activated a secure communication channel to Earth's newest space station, Unity Base. The facility had been constructed in neutral space using volunteer labor from all 3 species. Humans provided the organizational framework. Zeltharians contributed energy manipulation technology, and Corvins offered biological engineering expertise. Council members, I would like you to meet Commander Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel Harmony, Miller announced. The view screen showed Morrison standing on the bridge of a ship unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The vessel combined crystalline energy conduits, organic bioarmor, and human engineering in a design that should have been impossible. More importantly, the crew was visibly mixed. Humans, Zeltharians, and Corvins working together at integrated stations. This is the first ship of the Tripartite Alliance, Morrison reported. Our crew has been operational for 2 months with 0 conflicts and remarkable efficiency. When different species combine their strengths instead of fighting over their differences, the results exceed anything any single species could achieve alone. Zeth Prime Valdris appeared beside Morrison, his crystal wounds now completely healed and integrated with human biomedical technology. Hi, Commander. I must report that integration with human chaos theory has enhanced rather than diminished Zeltharian capabilities. Our energy manipulation is 40% more efficient when guided by human tactical flexibility. Sub-Commander Hex 9 stepped into view from his station, his individual consciousness now fully developed, while maintaining voluntary connection to specialized Corvin technical networks. Hive Queen, individual awareness has not weakened collective efficiency. Instead, it has revealed optimization possibilities that pure hive mind analysis could not detect. The council chamber erupted in arguments as both alien leadership struggled to process these reports. Everything they believed about species, incompatibility, and the necessity of their ancient war was being Challenged by direct evidence, Ambassador Davis waited for the noise to subside before presenting humanity's final proposal. The Galactic Council has three choices. First, you can continue your 1,000-year war until both civilizations destroy themselves and take half the galaxy with them. Second, you can attempt to force humanity back into neutral observer status, which will require fighting a war against an enemy that does not follow your tactical assumptions. Or third, you can join us in building something new. What exactly are you proposing? Asked Counselor Veltrak, a neutral species that had watched the ancient conflict from the sidelines for centuries. Davis activated another holographic display showing detailed plans for galactic reconstruction. The Tripartite Alliance, a new form of government based on cooperative competition rather than destructive conflict. Each species maintains autonomy over their internal affairs while contributing to shared projects that benefit everyone. Dr. Carter explained the psychological foundations. Zeltharians excel at long-term planning and energy systems. Corvins provide biological innovation and coordinated logistics. Humans contribute adaptability and conflict resolution. Together, we could explore and develop the galaxy in ways none of us could manage alone. The proposal was audacious beyond anything the galaxy had ever considered. Instead of conquest or subjugation, humanity was suggesting genuine partnership between species that had been mortal enemies for a millennium. Hive Queen Vex Prime clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. Query: what prevents humans from using alliance structure for eventual domination of partner species? The same thing that prevents you from dominating us, Morrison answered from his mixed species bridge. Mutual dependence and shared benefits. We need each other to achieve our full potential. Hyzeth Commander Azriel was less convinced. Crystalline Empire has ruled through strength and order for 10,000 years. We do not require assistance from younger species. With respect, High Commander, your empire has been locked in stalemate for 1,000 years, Ambassador Davis replied. If pure strength was sufficient, the war would have ended centuries ago. Lieutenant Rogers joined the transmission from New Denver, where she now commanded an integrated defense force that had become the model for Alliance military cooperation. Honored Council members, I have seen enemies become allies when they discover common ground. The question is whether you are willing to stop fighting long enough to find yours. The debate continued for 3 days. Both alien empires were being forced to reconsider fundamental assumptions about power, conflict, and galactic civilization. Younger species throughout the galaxy watched the proceedings with growing hope that the ancient war might finally end. On the final day, something unprecedented happened. Individual Zeltharians and Corvins began arriving at Nexus Prime to petition their own governments for alliance membership. The defectors from New Denver had become ambassadors for a new way of thinking, and their message was spreading throughout both empires. Colonel Hunter reported from Unity Base that construction of the second Alliance vessel was ahead of schedule, with volunteer crews from 17 different species requesting assignment. The human approach to integration was proving attractive to beings who had grown tired of endless conflict. The final vote was closer than anyone expected. The Corvin Syndicate agreed to trial membership by a narrow margin, influenced by reports from their defectors about the benefits of individual consciousness within collective frameworks. The Zeltharian Empire was more reluctant, but eventually agreed to limited cooperation in neutral territories. Ambassador Davis signed the formal alliance charter in a ceremony broadcast throughout the galaxy. For the first time in galactic history, 3 major powers had chosen cooperation over conquest. The ancient war between Zeltharians and Corvins did not end immediately, but it transformed into something manageable. Instead of total warfare, they now engaged in competitive cooperation, trying to outperform each other in alliance projects while working toward shared goals. Captain Morrison took command of the expanded Alliance fleet, leading mixed crews on exploration missions to uncharted regions of the galaxy. The ships they discovered and the technologies they developed exceeded anything the galaxy had seen during the 1,000-year war. On New Denver, Governor Phillips watched alien children playing with human children in schools that taught cooperation instead of competition. The small farming colony had become the symbolic heart of a new galactic civilization. Dr. Carter published her studies on interspecies psychology, providing the theoretical foundation for alliance expansion to other species. Her work proved that diversity of thought was not a weakness to be eliminated, but a strength to be cultivated. The tripartite alliance grew slowly but steadily as other species requested membership.